confess that this wasn't an album that won me over at first. Its nostalgic AOR sensibility made me less enthusiastic. And although I'm an AOR fan, I have to admit that sometimes the line between melody and cheesy feeling is very easy to cross. And then there's the fact that Matsumoto is a fantastic guitarist and an even better composer. Without having to rub his technical skills in everyone's face, the guitarist reactivated his group 20 years after the first album, a group that also includes Jack Blades from Night Ranger and Eric Martin from Mr. Big. Martin is another highlight, bringing even more class to this set of songs where even a baby metal appearance is valuable. Anyone who didn't catch the debut 20 years ago will be hooked on this sequel. Panzerchrist may have gone a decade without releasing new music, but now they are clearly making up for it. After a competent Last of a Kind released last year, they returned this year with this Maleficium Part 1, which shows that their characteristic blend of black and death metal is getting better and better, where their one-dimensionality is an asset and where power and heaviness are weapons that are used intelligently. To make this clear, we recommend a track like Mist of the Moat. With a first half like this, expectations for the second are very high. How many times have we seen bands come back from the dead only to have a disappointing second or third life? Mystery Blue could be considered one of those cases, a question open to debate, where the two albums released in the 80s remain classics. Although their second life, which began in the 90s, also has some very interesting moments as well as irregularity, it wasn't good for them to be rowing against the tide at a time when heavy metal wasn't popular and some lack of inspiration was present. Night Demon can be considered the album that can make us look at their career with new eyes and even analyze our prejudices in a different way. Hard-hitting heavy metal, a female voice that is far from common and yet fits perfectly with what is expected of the style, and an album that has all the necessary elements for fans. Dynamic themes alternating between classic mid-tempo and devastating up-tempo. This is an excellent surprise for anyone who wasn't expecting anything from them. Second album for Among These Shadows, who may have gone a little unnoticed with their debut in 2022. For those who didn't catch them then, now is an excellent time to get to know them. An extremely interesting mix of power, heavy, and thrash metal that starts to excite from the very beginning of the instrumental intro and title track. There is, however, an elephant in the room that we have to talk about and that prevents the pleasure from being even greater. The production, with the volume wanting to blast through the speakers, and it only doesn't because everything is so compressed. It makes you wonder what these excellent songs would sound like if they had a more organic and sober production. However, forgetting that, we have a set of songs that invite you to headbang while bringing us heavy metal melodies and harmonies. The final balance is totally positive. Mystical and ritualistic folk has always spoken to our hearts, and whenever we come across a proposal that falls within this genre, we are obliged to highlight it, obliged or compelled. This is because the way they manage to evoke a very specific atmosphere, the way they provide us with a totally immersive experience, makes it impossible not to be taken hostage of your own free will. This is what happens with Tunn Rider, which immerses us in Scandinavian traditions and mysticism with a musical proposal that is as much folk as ambient. In fact, its atmospheric component is undoubtedly the most memorable and effective. Haunting. The debut of the Vosforis project, which is basically a duo with Simon White from Diabolus Incarnate on vocals, guitars, and programming, and Adrian Erlinson from At the Gates and the Haunted on drums, also featuring Rich Shaw, ex-Cradle of Filth, on guitars on some songs. Lyrically, it's a challenging, conceptual work that focuses on three themes or perspectives. The human, in the darkest feelings such as despair and depression. That of the cosmos, of the vastness of space, of how we place ourselves in the bigger picture of possible intelligent life. How we are potentially seen by other forms of intelligent life. Finally, that of the occult, the abyss that watches us as we look into it. Musically, it's sober, classic melodic black metal that takes us back to what we needed to hear when the style broke out everywhere in the underground. A class that even today is not easy to find. Recommended. Any other way to define this new album by Belgium's Magic Kingdom? Many synonyms, but none that do justice to the enthusiasm that even the most demanding power metal fan will feel for this new set of songs. Yes, the commonplaces are all crammed in here without any embarrassment. But when the commonplaces don't prevent a work, whatever it is, from having this level of quality, then its weight is probably overrated. The fact that it's a long album is also a confident bet by the band on their own abilities. A bet that's won because despite its almost 70 minutes, this album doesn't have a single weak moment. Power metal lovers, rejoice. A big comeback for the Italian band Virtual Symmetry. Their fourth album proves what was already known. This is one of the great traditional progressive metal bands. An excellent taste in songwriting where the melodies are infectious, but don't neglect the technical element which, whether you like it or not, or even like it or not, is one of the important elements of the style. But it's the songs that shine, the way they sound perfect from start to finish, and this is an album without a weak moment, where the heaviness coexists very well with the epic and even majestic element of some of its arrangements. An obvious highlight is the final anthem, Eightfold Path, a 20-minute epic that is a spectacle in itself. For those who like progressive metal without too much intrusion of modern elements and with truly memorable songs, this is a must-have album. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this at all. The return of the Old Dead Tree, a band that has achieved some success in the gothic metal underground, is one of the great albums of the year. One of those that will even sound good to those who aren't particularly fans of the style. In fact, the boundaries of the style are clearly altered in a way that favors the songs. And this happens in such a way that this is an album you'll want to listen to over and over again. The melodies are rich, the arrangements are fantastic, and the songs as a whole are addictive, because they manage to combine all this with weight that is neither afraid nor ashamed to show itself. Complete and multifaceted, I would venture to say that the Return of the French is the best work of their entire career.
Sweden's Mörk Gryning are one of those names that everyone knows, but that knowledge doesn't always lead to a profound knowledge of their music. 4 years have passed since the release of their previous album, more than enough time to get hungry for melodic black metal in the good Swedish way. This is precisely what happens with Vosforis, which is a den of deliciously memorable riffs that are already part of the band's identity. Sometimes you can feel the weight a band has when they feel stuck in a creative dead end, trying to go beyond what they've already done. Mörk Gryning don't feel like that at all. In fact, they manage to keep their identity and at the same time make new music that sounds fresh and addictive, just like their classics. This will certainly be an album to add to that gallery.